Hey, so this morning I'm going to be reading that same scripture or speaking from it, the story of the prodigal son. It's one that if you're like me and you've been in church a long time, it's one we're all familiar with, one we've heard a lot. But I was amazed. I actually just read the book of Luke last month, and then this week as I was looking at it again after talking to Derek, I was amazed by some of the things that stood out to me that I've missed over the last few times reading it, or never really noticed before in reading it. The story starts out that it says in Luke chapter 15, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the portion of goods that fall to me." So he divided to them his livelihood. Now I've read this story, like I said, a million times. If you've been in church for a long time, you've probably heard this parable over and over again. This time when I read it, right now my parents are both kind of at the end of their life, and last week me and Caleb went back home and visited, and my mom's asking me what furniture you want, and I'm saying, "Mom, just calm down," right? That's kind of her favorite thing to do is ask stuff like that. But I noticed a word in here that I'd never noticed before when I read the story of the parable of the prodigal son, and that word is "them." If you read this first verse, it says, "Then he said, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the portion of the goods that falls to me.' So he divided to them his livelihood." Why I say that word "them" jumped out to me this time in reading it is because when the father divides his livelihood, he divides it between two sons, right? In my head, I'd always thought that the father, that he sends off the prodigal with his stuff, and then the rest is just kind of in limbo. But if you've got two sons, and you give half of the stuff to one, well, I guess that means that the other half belongs to the other son, right? And so I want you to keep that in your mind as we keep on reading. "And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in the land, and he began to be in want." So it tells us about this son that he's kind of reckless, that he takes everything his father's given him, that he says he needs, and he goes and he wastes it all. He wastes it all on prodigal living, on bad choices, on fast life, He wastes it. And that after he wastes it, there comes a famine, and suddenly he has nothing at all, nothing to go back to. Everything has been wasted, everything is gone. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against you, against heaven, and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' And so the son says to himself, 'If I go back home, I can beg my father to just let me work at it, just let me have a job, and I'll be happy to just work there. I don't even have to be the heir anymore. I don't have to have the stuff.' And he arose and came to his father, but when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son.' So the son, when he's coming, thinks that his father's going to be angry. But when the father sees the son in the distance, he's overcome with compassion. He's overcome with love. And he goes and he falls on his neck and he kisses him. And the next thing it says, but the father said to his servants, 'Bring out the best robe and put it on him.' And he put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it. And let us eat and be merry, for this is my son, was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found,' and then began to be merry." So the father is celebrating. The son has come home. He's overjoyed. He says, put the best robe on him, put the best shoes on him, put a ring on his finger. He's a part of this family. Let's have a celebration. Let's eat the fatted calf. Which I had a pot roast yesterday. I imagine the fatted calf was something close to that, right? A good occasion. And so he's calling for a huge celebration for his son. But then the next verse is always the part I found most interesting. In verses 25 it goes on. It says, that the other brother is outside, and as he's outside, he hears the commotion and everything that was going on. And it says this about the older brother. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time. And yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. This story of the prodigal son is one of reunion. There are several reunions that take place in the story. One is that the son has lost everything, has wasted everything, and he feels like an outsider, a failure. And when he goes to his father, instead of finding anger and abandonment, he's brought in, he's embraced, right? And that's a powerful thing, to be embraced, right? It's a powerful thing to have somebody give you grace. Another reunion happens for the father. For the father, his son is gone. His son is dead. His son has taken his livelihood and left. But when he sees him coming back, there's a reunion. What was gone is back again. And then there's the older brother, who I've always been pretty religious. You know, I was a good Pharisee at the age of 6. And so when I read this story, a lot of times I think of myself right there with the older brother. And he's angry. He's angry that he's been doing the right thing. He's been at home working. He's been at home doing what he was supposed to do. This other brother has gone and has wasted everything. Now he comes back and there's a celebration for him. Where was the celebration for the older brother? Where was the celebration for him doing the right thing every day when he woke up? And the father says, You were always here with me. All you had to do was ask. It was all yours. It is right that we should make merry and be glad. You know, I told you that I noticed the word them this week. And the reason I noticed the word them is because if the father split the livelihood, if he split everything he had in half, right? That's my split sound. Half goes to the prodigal brother, half goes to the older brother. Whose stuff is the father giving away when the younger brother comes back? Right? That's something you only pick up on if you're going through that in life, right? Whose cow is that? That's the older brother's cow. That's the older brother's ring. That's the older brother's stuff. Right? And what's his father doing? He's wasting it. He's wasting. We call it the story of the prodigal son. You know what this is the story of? The prodigal father. It's a story of a father who would take stuff that's not even his anymore and give it away. Right? He's just giving it away. It's not even his to give, and he's giving it away. And the older son is angry because he's waiting for that old man to die so he can get that stuff, right? He's waiting to get that bedroom. He's waiting to get in that house. And now that guy's just giving stuff away. What is going on here? He's mad. You can't, here's what he needs his dad to do. He needs his dad to just kind of live in a shell and stop spending money, and maybe just peacefully die, right? That's what the older son needs. That's the impression that I get. Which of these two sons has done a wrong to the father? Right? The younger son has said, I would like, rather than waiting on you to die, I would like you to just give me my stuff and I can go. And we read and we say, boy, that's a terrible thing to do, to just waste it all, and just ask for it like that. But is the older brother any better? He's there and he's just waiting on the old man to die. And he's sitting here at this party and he's thinking, this is my stuff that you're giving away. This is my stuff that you're spending. This is all my stuff. This should be my party, right? And I think we're all sitting here in church. Chances are we at times are pretty close to that older brother, right? Last week I talked about money. And I think it's an interesting thing to think about here with the prodigal son, because the father, how would I say it? What's the father's long-term plan with what he's got? Right? I mean, the father, he could throw the biggest party in the world, right? He could throw a party every day. But the older brother, what does he say? Let's not spend anything we don't have to, right? He knows how much. Who do you think has a better idea of how much is in the bank? The older brother or the father? I would say probably the older brother is the one that's keeping an eye on it, right? I think something that God would call on us to do is be graceful, right? That's the theme of the story. Be graceful. When it comes to grace in your life, are you graceful like you don't know how much is in the bank, or are you graceful like you know exactly how much is in the bank? Are you following me? If somebody wrongs you, if somebody has wronged you, if somebody's in the wrong, you say to yourself, well, I'm going to let it go to here, and then I'm going to cut it off, right? I'll allow this. If they come back on their hands and their knees, and they beg for forgiveness, I'll give them dirty looks and treat them bad the rest of their life, but I'll forgive them, right? Or do you act like the bank is full? How much grace does God have to give? Has anybody in this building right now exhausted God's grace? Have any of you guys in here sinned so much that God ran out of grace? No. And I know you all, right? You think anybody out there has exhausted God's grace? You think He's got a bank account of grace that's just dropping down and down? It's not. He's got enough for everybody, right? Sometimes we like to make people pay, right? The older brother would have loved to gone to the younger brother and said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you an entry-level job, right? And if you work hard, I'll bump you from $8 an hour, I'll bump you up to 10 in about a year. And then we'll see how it goes. After maybe a 4 or 5 year probationary period, I think I might put you in a management position here at the farm, right? That's what the older brother would have liked to done. What does the father do? He just runs out there. Oh, thank God. He's home. My boy. I'd lost him, and he's here. That's how God feels about every single person. Every single person in this world. He wants to bring them in. He wants us to bring them in. This morning we're going to take the Lord's Supper, and as we take the Lord's Supper, it's a remembrance that when we were prodigals, when we were sinners, when we were lost, as we still are oftentimes now, Jesus died for us. He gave everything He had. He left nothing in the bank. And it's grace enough for me. It's grace enough for you. It's grace enough for us all.